when we started this journey together, there were those that believed we are wasting our time. That with all the might of those who stood before us, and the truth be told, at the beginning, I was unaware of how powerful, how genuinely powerful these people were. But when we started, consistently what I was told was, don't waste your time. You cannot defeat these people. And yet, 3 years later, here we are, not just still standing, not just still defiant. 3 years later, our victories are overwhelming. We have achieved more, far more, than any of these people ever thought possible. And the truth is, together, we have achieved more than even we, perhaps, had thought possible. Which is why they are now not just desperate, they are beyond desperate. And there is not a line left that these people will not cross to maintain the corrupt hold on our town.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011 he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A very, very good evening. My name is Raja Mia. This is a special end of year transmission where we will do a review of the year of the rabble, of how from nowhere we made the national headlines for a whole host of reasons, and repeated to make headlines in this town and in other towns as, from my inbox, as an inspiration to others elsewhere who are fighting corruption and tyranny and the grooming and gang rape of their town's children in all too familiar ways. Thank you to all of you who contributed and actually went and bought a ticket for this event, and to all of those who've continued to support me. And yeah, I'm grateful. Continue to support me throughout the year. And the simple truth is, without your support, it's impossible for me to keep going, which is why these people continue to ridicule us and attempt to distract and divert us from our purpose. And our purpose is not to give them legitimacy. Our purpose is, I think by now, very, very transparent. It is to give the people of our town a voice. And no, Julia, This isn't me. It's what you've done. It's what every one of you have done. It's what every one of you have done. Because that is why they fear us. Is that, if anything, all I am is the amplification of the voice of so many in our town who have simply had enough. Now cast your mind back to January last year. The Prime Minister had gone on television. He'd announced we were going into lockdown again, if you all remember. And those that led our town were very, very different to those that now lead our town. We had Sean Fielding as leader of Oldham Council. Arrogance personified. Ineptitude amplified. And cowardice confirmed. Cowardice confirmed. We then had, as a chief executive, who'd progressed from deputy chief executive, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins at the helm. Ballpark £250,000 a year salary. And beneath her, her two trusted lieutenants, Helen Lockwood, who'd followed her, joined Oldham after leaving wherever she'd come from in controversy with millions of pounds going missing. And we had Rebecca Boobgate Sutcliffe, who, after being found for gross misconduct in Greater Manchester Police, ended up somehow being seconded and given a job here without really even an interview. She'd announced a position, confirmed a position even before the jobs had been interviewed for. And in a town like ours, we know what had happened there. But that was the leadership of Oldham Council. Today, not a single one of these people remain in post. The entire leadership team of Oldham Council have been wiped out. And I think we know why that is. Or at least in part why that is. It is because of what we have been doing for the last 3 years. The relentless pressure. Relentless. Selfless from every one of you. And our collective determination and resolve has chased 3 very senior leaders from this town out, run for the hills, and the barefaced liar former leader of Oldham Council, Sean Fielding, is now hiding out somewhere between Manchester and Salford. Run away. After we defeated him at the ballot box. Because we have been clear from the beginning. We are not mobsters. We're not money launderers. None of us belong to some vigilante militia that nibble samosas with Jim McMAHON. We are honest, law-abiding citizens, and we believe in the power of democracy and the ability to mobilize members of the public so they go out and exercise their democratic duty and vote for change. Vote for change. And that's why we're still here. And that's why AROOJ SHAH, the heroin dealers, I won't use that word, the heroin dealers, I don't know. I think clarification of what her role is with the mobster Irish Shimmy is long overdue. Particularly as he now seems to have some sort of more than staff member role at that mocktail bar that used to be a shisha bar or an ice cream lounge that AROOJ SHAH owned before transferring to a convicted money launderer brother. No, there's much more going on there. There's much more going on there. Which is why she is running scared in Chadderton South, because she is facing re-election in May. And despite her repeated attempts to claim she is the victim of racism, the town is not the place it was 3 years ago. And more people have the courage to be able to articulate their genuine grievances in a way where it makes it even more difficult than it ever has been to portray them falsely as racists. Chauffeur, driver and community activist. I find it. There's irony in how a convicted heroin dealer who's never held down a legitimate job in his life is claiming that he's helping out by putting alarms in houses, when the very people who were robbing those houses were the drug addicts who needed to feed their heroin habits. And I still find it damning that this mobster and his moll both refuse to acknowledge that what Dale Cregan did to an Oldham police officer was murder. Neither of them will use the word murder. They've both given interviews or made comments repeatedly throughout the year. AROOJ SHAH's on record shouting he had nothing to do with it. He had nothing to do with it. Here, hold my handbag. He had nothing to do with it. He was convicted in the dock alongside Dale Cregan. But then what do you expect of a gangster's moll? The only problem with all of this is that gangster's moll should be nowhere near the position of leader of Oldham Council. Where do most convicted drug dealers get their flashcards from, Sheila? So come this May, and the re-election campaign starts in earnest, Do not be surprised when the convicted heroin dealer takes to the streets to hand out Labour Party leaflets. After all, this is a man who was aided in his parole to remain in the town before he violated his parole. He was aided by Jim McMahon, who provided him support with a reference, although he won't he's playing with words and saying it's not a reference, it was casework, a reference for the getaway driver of an Oldham cop killer. The MP helps assist the getaway driver of an Oldham cop killer to stay in the town so he can be with his family. Which members of his family are we referring to, Jim? So, let's be under no illusion before we continue as to what the number one priority is politically in this town over the next coming year. We've got rid of an imbecile. It's a buffoon, wasn't he? John Fielding was just a willing idiot. It was clear how his political journey had been lined up. Nod your head, smile, and we'll take care of you, lad. My information is, privately, he's admitting he regrets having not sacked her as deputy leader. He regrets not having sacked her. Just shows how stupid he still continues to be. Because he never had the power to sack her, because he was never really in control. Now, one of the key priorities up to May is the need to mobilise effectively behind Robert Barnes, and let's face it, there's no one else, and he's a decent guy. Robert Barnes, the Conservative candidate, or who will be the Conservative candidate for Chadderton South. The need for this town, for every decent person in this town to descend on Chadderton South and campaign for the removal of the Mobsters mole AROOJ SHAH and support the election campaign of a very decent man local to the area. Now, I'm repeatedly being told by the Labour Party activists who troll me on social media. You'll notice I don't troll people. I don't go chasing other people and commenting in other places. But these people choose to want to troll me. And are keen to point out that apparently Robert Barnes doesn't live in Chadderton South. He lives in Hollingwood. He lives metres away from the Chadderton South border. He stood in election in Chadderton South repeatedly, even though he's lost repeatedly. I think that shows his dedication. He campaigns and he works and does casework for the last 4 or 5 years in Chadderton South. But who does Irish Immy think he is, taking to the internet to try and scare and intimidate a decent law-abiding man? Who does a convicted heroin dealer think he is? He doesn't live in Chadderton South, and his mole sure as hell doesn't live in Chadderton South. Does AROOJ SHAH live in Chadderton South? Does she have any connection with Chadderton South? Does she bugger it? She was placed in Chadderton South by Jim McMahon after even the Pakistanis in Glodick, found her unpalatable. Why do you think her own community in Glodick found her unpalatable, and after failing to have her deselected as the official Labour Party candidate because McMahon and his mates mobilised and prevented the selection of candidates in an open and transparent way, she got took out by an independent. An independent took her out. And of course she did the predictable thing because she's a crybaby victim, isn't she? She's a professional victim. Racist, misogynist. It's because I'm a Pakistani woman. The men, they don't like me. It's because I'm a Pakistani woman. It's because I'm a Muslim. I'm a woman. Jim, take me somewhere where I'll be safe. The mission is clear. It was they elected her in the first place. The fact that they elected a woman in the first place, they have other women elected in St. Mary's, in Medlock, portraying people like me of my background as universally misogynist. She doesn't care. It's political gain for her, isn't it? It's no different than she portrays most of you lot as a bunch of racists. You're white, so you're automatically racist, and I'm an Asian man, so I'm automatically a misogynist. She did, didn't she? Even went on Newsnight crying, "Oh, it's because I'm a woman." No, it's because you're a mobster's moll. And they want nothing to do with you. Even the Pakistanis in Glodick want nothing to do with you.